Well, thank you for that, Psycho. And today, welcome. We are going to be looking at the musical differences of the classical guitar and the classical string family. Hi, I'm Jack, and I'm here with my double bass.
I'm Alistair, and I play the cello.
My name is Sako, I play the classical guitar.
So today, we're going to run a panel and a general discussion, and we're going to be talking about four main aspects. So we're going to be looking at the instruments and their qualities. We're going to be looking at the performance practice of each of these instruments, the techniques behind the two different kinds of families and how they compare, and the theory and the seminal figures behind these players, behind these instruments. So, Psycho,
Yes.
please do tell us just a little bit about the development of the guitar.
Yeah, well, the guitar, I think, the first started in the 15th, 16th century, and when it first started, I think it was with 4 strings, and then they added the guitar. Well, to start with the guitar, there's 3 types of guitar. There's the classical guitar, the Spanish guitar, with the gut strings or the non-strings, and there's the electric guitar with steel string, and the acoustic guitar with steel string. But this is a Spanish classical guitar, and yeah, it started in 14th, 15th, 16th century. And in 20th century, the maestro Andres Segovia started to introduce the guitar as a solo instrument for the solo repertoire of the guitar to the audience, and I think it started from there. Yeah. What about the string violin family?
Yeah, so this is a double bass. This is it's actually an Australian built one, also Psycho's Australian built too, so Australia represent,
Nice.
And so this is a classic example of an English tradition of bass building,
Yep.
which actually has very similar ties to the Italian roots, which Alistair is going to talk about later. So this instrument was built by Bernard Simon Fent. It's a copy of that, mind you, built by Andrew Tate, and it's a beautiful example of English bass building, and it brings together various examples and traits of Italian instruments. But talking about Italian instruments, Alistair, do you want to tell us a bit about the cello?
Well, yeah, the cello, I mean, in the Baroque era, we often held it in between our legs with no spike, and then there was the development of the spike and metal strings compared to the gut strings, and my cello is French, but the Italian makers, Stradivarius, Guarneri, were some of the most famous, and their instruments are historically so significant.
Absolutely.
And just beautiful. So
They're pieces of art, aren't they?
Oh,
Yeah, beautiful. And I heard along the grapevine somewhere that Stradivarius did.
Yeah, I think he made a couple of guitars and stuff, and they had a very similar shape to that, like the same angles and the F-walls and the stuff. Yeah. But I think it was ages ago. I think there's a couple of theirs till now. I don't know how much are they. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the same price as
The violins and cellos are pretty expensive, aren't they? Still,
reaching the millions. So
that's right. Yep. For sure. Good stuff. All right. So, looking at the performance practice of each of the respective instruments, Psycho, can you just tell us a little bit about just how that might manifest?
Well, as I said, the guitar has 6 strings, and I think one of the main techniques, or the well-known techniques for a Spanish guitar is strumming. That I don't think there's a lot of instruments you can do with strumming like a Spanish guitar.
And so how much? And so is that used a lot in, like, say, a solo setting or like an ensemble?
Yeah, like for example, the Rodrigo's famous concerto for guitar, the Aranjuez, is start with. It starts with the strumming, and there's a lot of strumming and stuff like that. So I guess that's a technique. And also we have tremolo, which you guys have too. It's like on the guitar we play with the 3 fingers rather than the bow. So stuff like that.
Beautiful.
I guess you guys have that too, right?
Yeah, so So for sure. So in terms of like performance context, with the double bass, it's normally in like an orchestral setting, or actually it's predominantly in an orchestral setting. Alistair, cello.
So cello, it came to prominence as a solo instrument very early on through Pablo Casal's and the Bach Cello Suite, which is a purely solo cello 6-week piece. But also we are used in orchestras and very importantly in chamber ensembles, especially quartets, since we provide the harmonic foundation for the upper strings. So
And that's, I think the guitar, always the guitar is not, I don't think it's been an instrument for the orchestra.
Yeah, why can you tell us a bit about that? Why?
Yeah, I think that's because mainly the volume, the low volume that the classical guitar has. I think the lack of concertos. I think there's a couple of concertos, Rodrigo's ones and stuff. But I think mainly because of the volume. But we do play chamber music sometimes with other instruments, or classical guitar quartet or duet or ensemble, or even a classical guitar orchestra with like 20, 30 classical guitars playing.
Yeah.
So mainly solo, I guess.
Right. Yeah, very good. All right, so we're going to move on. We're going to look at a couple of techniques. Alistair, just starting with you, do you want to perhaps demonstrate some classic idiosyncratic
I'd love
cello
to. So
techniques?
some classic string techniques. We've got the glissando, which is very cheesy. We've also got tremolo, but it's usually on one note. But we can also change notes. Like that. Also trill. Something like that. Are you able to do trills?
Yeah, we have them.
Oh wow, finger substitution, fancy.
Stuff like that. And sometimes you do with like other strings too, but most.
Yeah. And of course, that's also a big difference, of course, between the guitar family and the violin family. Of course, is it's fretted, and the bass and cello, of course, aren't fretted. And so also the double bass will have, you can also do tremolo.
Usually the tip of the bow as well.
In fact, in Das Rheingold by Wagner, there's just a big bottom E flat that's just held. And it's held there, and all the arpeggios go over the orchestra, and it holds that for just 5 minutes. It's massive drone. That's one of the techniques you use, like just a pedal note. It's a strong device within the double bass. Glissando too. So in fact, glissando is really fun on bass. Whatever it is.
Nice. Yeah, you can do glissando as well. Stuff like that. You can do glissando too, guitar. Like with the frets, but it will sound a bit different.
That's right. You got a bit of.
I think if you do it quick, but you will still hear them.
That's right.
And I think the most similar technique is pizzicato compared to
of course.
where we use our fingers.
Yeah, well, do you mute the strings when you play the pizzicato, or it's already because we mute the strings with the palm and then.
You can for sure. Like in fact, what on double bass, what you normally do is you'd stop it with your left hand. You can stop with your right hand.
No, I mean as soon as like you mute it and then you play the muted string.
Oh no.
That's how we do the pizzicato.
Often our pizzicato is more resonant and more
Oh,
vocal, so
okay.
it kind of sounds longer.
That's right. In Western music, generally you want to have a nice resonant sound, like an orchestral pizzicato.
Nice. Yeah.
Good vibrato too. It sounds really nice.
Beautiful.
And
Can
then
you do vibrato on guitar?
Yeah, you can like.
oh wow.
Change the pitch, I guess, a bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because the strings move back and forth a lot. You can also achieve like a cool timpani effect. dependent on the way you use the flesh of your fingers, and it would be very similar with guitar. That's definitely a comparison between the two families that are quite similar, aren't they? Yeah,
cool.
for sure.
Nice.
Very
nice,
good.
Nice.
All right. Finally, let's look at theory. So Psycho,
So
tell us a bit about.
the notation.
Yeah,
Well,
notation.
the notation of a guitar, the scores usually are in treble clef, which is a bit different for you guys. But yeah, it's in treble clef, and yeah, basically most of the more older classical guitars is they read in treble clef, and they will be. So there is two types too. So there is the notation, the score, and there is the tabs. But the tabs usually not for classical guitar. It's for other styles or other guitars like electric guitars or pop styles. So they will be, and the tabs is basically 6 lines, and they represent the 6 strings of the guitar, and they just tell you like on the 6 strings, put your on the 4th fret, so you just play on the 4th fret and stuff like that. But the main issue with that is that you don't have rhythm or timing, so you really don't know if that's a quaver or crotchet or whatever it is. So you just need to listen and that. But yeah, if you come to the notation of the classical guitar, it's just a normal score with the treble clef.
Yeah,
So,
interesting.
What about you guys?
Yeah, so I mean, for double bass, often you can really use your memory a lot in like folk music, but generally in Western art music, we very much use notated music, and it just sticks to that. Yeah. And sometimes you might use your memory for solo pieces, but that brings us to like Alistair. Alistair, I know for cello, I think memory is pretty important, like, especially with the bark suites. You want to talk about
I think
that?
it's really important memory to express more melodic lines, especially in Bach, where I'm renowned to perform those pieces for memory, as well as concertos that are performed with orchestra or with piano. And I think just to add on the notation, so the cello can also, as well as being in bass clef like the double bass, we can also perform in tenor clef and also actually treble clef, which is quite high for us. But
well, further on that note, the double bass is interesting because it reads an 8VA clef, so everything sounds an octave below what is written. And also, we play 8VA tenor clef and 8VA treble clef as well, so it's all these strange clefs as well. It's symbolic of the range. You've got all the way down to bottom C, and all up to like.
It sounds like my bottom C.
Yeah. So,
That's how many octaves is down there.
it's 3 octaves.
Yeah.
Two octaves. Yeah, 2 octaves. Yeah,
Interesting.
But
what about the seminal figures? So
Oh, yes.
Psycho, about the guitar.
Well, one of my teacher, of course, maybe will be listening. No, I really love my teacher. No, and also Paco de Lucia is you can probably say that he's the god of flamenco guitar, Spanish guitar. He's unbelievable. He died 5 years ago, 6 years ago or something. But yeah, he's mine. I always watch his videos and get inspired by him. He's amazing. What about you?
Yeah, so for the double bass, I mean, it always comes to mind Giovanni Bottestini. He was, of course, an amazing Italian master of the double bass, regarded and renowned as the Paganini of the double bass. He was a huge figure of the 19th century, and he was good friends with Giuseppe Verdi, and he actually conducted the premiere of Aida, his famous opera, like Verdi's famous opera. And also, Bottestini was famous as being a conductor of opera, and between the entr'actes of the orchestra, of the opera, he would get in front of the orchestra, in front of the audience, and perform solo double bass repertoire from memory, just as a performative, expressive device, and to entertain the audience as they change sets and scenery for the operas. So yeah, that, and of course Bottestini then he very much inspired the 20th century composers of the double bass. such as Edward Tubin in Tartu in Estonia composed a beautiful double bass concerto. Kusevitsky, who was also the conductor of the Boston Symphony, he was a Russian man. He was also heavily inspired by the work of Giovanni Bottesini as well. So,
Nice.
yeah.
What about you also?
So for us, I think kind of like the god figure is Pablo Casals, since
Oh,
he
yeah.
cultivated the Bach cello suites. But my favorite is Jacqueline Dupre.
Oh, yes.
So she actually debuted in Wigmore Hall, and she actually performed on a Stradivari cello.
Wow.
So that's a fun fact. But
There you
she,
go.
she's my idol.
How much would that be?
Oh gosh, thousands.
How many millions?
Oh,
Yeah.
millions. Yeah, we're
And it makes it all the more popular since she played on it.
Oh,
You know,
especially, yeah.
It's regarded as the finest cellist of the 20th century, isn't
Exactly,
it?
yeah, no, she's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that wraps us up to a close of this panel. Thank you very much,
Yeah, no, thank
Psycho
you.
and Alistair,
Yeah.
for good discussions, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed the presentation. If you do have any questions or any queries, please feel free to email any of us. And yeah, we hope you have a good day and yes, a good evening. See ya.
See you.
Let's go.
Was that recording?
Yeah, it was recording.